Now, one of the issues that ranks high on your list of priorities is a platform funded by the people and not with corporate or PAC money. The incumbent of the 34th district is Congressman Jimmy Gomez, who you've described as, quote, a corporately funded establishment Democrat. As two sides of the same Democratic coin, where do you and Congressman Gomez see eye to eye, and what makes your experiences and your platform a better fit for the people of the 34th district?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that. I like that medical surgical question.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Jimmy, he has a great high progressive rating in terms of standard voting record wise, in terms of he's not a conservative Democrat. I mean, I know that in the Democrat Party, we know who tends to be more conservative, who tends to be more liberal. He's definitely not in the conservative side. He's actually in the Progressive Caucus,
Mhm.
and he's a member of that caucus. But I think when it comes to the issues that are really important in regards to the economic freedom and power of the people and their ability to sustain themselves financially, or when it comes to issues that are very controversial, where if you're the first one taking that stance, you might
Mhm.
get attacked, like how AOC has been when ever since she entered Congress. Because to be honest, her and Ilhan Omar and a few other representatives, they are bold, like what attracted me to Kenneth, in the sense of they are bold to push forward the ideas that haven't been pushed forward before, that are local to their communities. And so I think that's the element that we're looking for in our community and our district.
Mhm.
Jimmy's safe on voting on bills and co-sponsoring bills like the one condemning police brutality, which I think every single person should be, of course, signing. I think that's a basic prerequisite. But then to use that and say that you're progressive isn't enough,
Mhm.
because those are just kind of PC stances, or kind of expected actions that anybody can do.
Mhm.
And so, to give you even just a more concrete example, and this is where one of my endorsers asked me,
Mhm.
given that we have Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson, Ryan Knight that endorsed me, but one of my endorsers before endorsing me asked, "But Jimmy's a progressive," and I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I laid it down for the person, and I was like, are you kidding me? If he was progressive, he would be supporting and co-sponsoring something like $2,000 direct cash relief instead of a means tested one-time stimulus check. When you go and to his town halls, and there are recordings out there, so I mean, if he changes his word, that's great, because it's for the people, and I'm not really competitive when it comes to that. As long as you're changing your stance for the people, that's fine. But when somebody had asked him, what about UBI? What about emergency UBI relief?
Mhm.
His answer on that town hall was, yeah, I mean, that's great to give cash to people, everyone, but right now we need to really help those that really need it more. And when I heard that, I'm like, how dare you? How in the world are you to say who needs it and who doesn't,
Mhm.
based on these arbitrary means tests that are based on a previous year's income, or regard, like, completely being devoid and not considering any other obligations or debt that family or individual might have. And it's like, who are you to say that? Like, and
Mhm.
so I think in a way, these liberal Democrats are saying the right things to say, but then when it comes to action, not really taking the direct action and really taking bold, big actions, and not just like policy PC correctness moves.
Mhm.
And so another example of that, I mean, not kind of coming forth directly, and even to this day on June 4th, supporting a $2,000 a month cash relief. It's been 2.5 months. I mean, I don't know what would change his mind to get him to change his mind, but that's one thing. And then, I mean, if the local and the majority here in LA, Rainier, the general sentiment and belief right now is rent and mortgage should be canceled, because pre COVID 19, masses of our people had 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
Now masses have people have no jobs to make ends meet. And
Mm-hmm.
now you're opening up the economy and saying continue, but then a lot of these people haven't even been able to pay rent, and now they need to find a job, but there's really no jobs available. And then so it's like the government's just dumping this, trying to cover this issue under the carpet by reopening the economy
Mm-hmm.
when the people have no money to become the economy. And so just these obvious issues like rent and mortgage cancellation is the thing to do right now. If you're not giving them direct cash relief, then cancel the rent and mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go voting for a bill that's called the Heroes Act, that would most likely never be passed because you, again, drafted that on your own without input. And I'm not a partisan, oh, Democrats all the way. I think in situations like this, we all need to come and work together. So if it comes to drafting policy issues together, and not wasting your time knowing that a bill won't pass, that's the way to do it. And so what Jimmy kind of opted for instead of rent mortgage cancellation was $100 billion rental relief fund, and this is something that's kind of the safe view to take because representatives like Maxine Waters and these other big names sort of support that, and so it's sort of safe to put your name behind that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it in detail, the rent relief fund, um, certain funds have no caps or requirements or specifications as to whether or not you can dip into this fund and also into another fund for these mortgage lenders,
Mm-hmm.
firstly. And then in regards to the relief that renters or other mortgage borrowers can have, like it's very means tested, and it requires you to jump through hoops. And we all know, and you are probably very familiar, Rainier, is whenever you have a means tested program, you're automatically shutting out people because number one, there's this thing with it's shutting out people, and those people not being able to access it either because they don't want to because of the stigma involved or because there's so many hoops to jump through or
Mm-hmm.
because of the access to that or and the restrictions to that universality that would otherwise be helpful in that. And so that's kind of the first thing and obvious thing to do, but to pass something like that instead of actually listening to the people of LA who really want rent and mortgage cancellation, it's not as progressive as we want it here. So it's nothing personal against him, but for us to wait another 2 years for a representative that's not actually talking and aligned with our issues isn't something that the communities want, nor the communities that I am in want. And so that's why our campaign is different, and that's why we're building upon what Kenneth had paved for me. And so I call him my political godfather. But yeah, that's what we're doing here in LA.
I'm actually really glad that you brought up the criticism of means tested welfare and talking about unemployment because I know that this week alone, the United States has added over 1 million new people to our already bloated unemployment program, which many of these people, like you said, it isn't enough. And it's making it infinitely more difficult for poor and working class people of color to stay safe and protected from the coronavirus. One of the key components of your platform is a universal basic income, specifically the freedom dividend championed by Andrew Yang. If elected, and if you could pass universal basic income in your district, how would the rollout look like? How will UBI impact economic injustice in the 34th district? And what concrete changes can we expect to see if UBI is passed?
Yeah, those are great questions. For me, I really feel, I mean, just as important Medicare for all is UBI is as well. And I don't like it when I go to different town halls or Q&As and they're like, which one is more important though, Medicare for all or UBI? And I'm like, I'm not gonna answer that question because I don't think that's the way to go about really creating change and making it
You
happen.
can have both.
But for yeah, for UBI, and because I think there's very important, and I don't know if you can actually say one is more important than the other.
Mhm.
But for UBI, I think it's very important that we put cash directly in the hands of our people who know how to use it best and when to use it best. And so if that's the case, then I don't think we should go ahead and have the added police. And this is again where we have this mindset of not trusting the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like in our, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but in our LA, like in our LA city budget, 54% is being allocated to policing the people. And so when you look at that on a mindset level, thought level as well, our leaders, they don't trust the people and they're policing us still with this whole means test crap, and with distributing it as well, and being very police, being very restrictive about that. And so I think what's very important is to have UBI as it is and as it's been proposed, to have it be directly given to the people. So establish federal bank accounts where it can be direct deposited, into which every single person has access to it. And those who have been paying taxes have immediate access to it. So then when when tragedy hits, they're able to instantly pull it out. And so I think that's very important for communities right now, especially given where we have people waiting for 6 weeks just to get unemployment benefits,
Mm-hmm.
where we have people who still haven't received unemployment benefits because they're trying to explain to the state employment office. But the pandemic unemployment assistance includes freelancers and independent contractors. And then after 2 or 3 more exchanges, then they get it approved. And so it's like with all of these bureaucratic elements and tapes and restrictions and roadblocks in the way, like a lot of this would be eliminated by having UBI, and it would help our communities directly and give them an ability to help each other and pool that resource together, because those that might not need it, they could just put it into a fund and be able to help within their communities and be able to share that and then work that way out. And so I think it's a direct economic kind of uplift and ability to give that stool or chair to stand on for
Mm-hmm.
our communities that we have here in Los Angeles. Because right now, I mean, even with those jobs that have been just completely shut down, like with non-essential services, like that's a lot. Like you have retail, you have hair, you have so many different areas where all of a sudden these people have no money. So that would help a lot in that respect, while also directly giving them the ability to pay for rent and to live, and to be able to live. And I think what's important now that the economy is opening up, is these people aren't going to be using the UBI to just pay for consumer goods, because
No.
there's still basic goods that need to be paid for as people continue to not have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that it would also help is, and this is something that I don't want people watching to misinterpret or understand. I am all for jobs with living wages, because although I am for a universal basic income, and I do hope for a time where a UBI amount will be sufficient for somebody not to have to work,
Mm-hmm.
and if they want to work, they can and have that extra income. But until we get to that point, it's still important that we have jobs with living wages, because we won't have that immediately from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And so although I'm very supportive of jobs with living wages, at a time right now to have employers, small business employers whose sales have decreased by at least 70 to 80%, to have them compete with expanded unemployment benefits is also unfair to the small business owners. Yes, they would eventually want to raise the wage to 20, 25 an hour, and compete with that. But during a time where they're actually needing money and bleeding money, and to expect them to suddenly do that right now, that's also not being considerate of our small business owners as well,
Mm-hmm.
and taking them into account, because they are also part of the people. And so I think a emergency UBI is really a fair and more efficient way to also go about doing it. I know that I've been in many kind of town hall Q&A forums where some people have even brought up different ideas, like where it's like, hey, David, how about the UBI be based on the living standard cost for each region or state, and then that match the unemployment benefits based on past records and whatever that good standard number amount is formula, that could be it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, those are great ideas to explore. And I think it's getting the conversation out, because like you and me, when we heard about UBI, we were like, what the fuck? We're
Yeah.
not living in like some heaven utopia, like, but and that was my thought. But then I think the more we talk about it and the more we change the mindset of people into thinking, no, this is our country. When we say our country, like we're the ones who are the owners. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's that ownership that we haven't realized or clicked with yet. But I think now that with COVID-19, with the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and police brutality, and the fact that the government is really kind of overlooking a lot of things in the in sense of injustice that's being done to different groups and communities based on race is obviously inherently evil. And then number two, on poverty, like poverty kills now, we've realized throughout this COVID-19, what it's exposed is it's accelerated everything to show that if you're poor, too bad. You're left out to defend for yourself. And so I think a lot has kind of been happening. I know that even for myself, Rainier, there are times where the emotions are just too overwhelming with everything that's going on, but it just makes you think, what's next? Like, what do we do after this? And so I
Yeah.
think that's where we need to now catalyze and convert that energy, alchemize it into like an energy of, yo, this is where we take ownership and this is how we do it. And so yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We have about 5 months left to our campaign, and we're really pushing for it. And I realized, Rainier, going back to the comment that you had made about my opponent being corporately funded. Yes, he is corporately funded. 98.8% of his campaign contributions are from PACs and corporate PACs. He has super PACs helping him. So if you
Wow.
were to, I bet if you were to go ahead and um, lay out who has the most individual small contributions, we probably do, even though he's been in office for years and is a career politician.
Hmm.
And so when you think of that, it's like, what? You're a career politician. How in the world would you have less number of small individual contributions than me when you're a household name supposedly or allegedly? And it's kind of thinking, having people wake up and realize, oh, the ones that win the elections aren't necessarily the ones that have the best platform, the best track record, the best leadership values, or whatever it might be. But it's actually the ones who have the most corporate donors. And so for us, we actually have had different even PACs, non-corporate PACs say, hey David, we'd love to contribute to your campaign. We love your campaign platform. But for me, I'm not saying that non-corporate PACs are inherently evil, but for me, it's like I want to know the individual names and stories behind each donor. I don't want to know this nameless group or this name group and I can make all my assumptions about the group based on the name, but then I don't have no idea who the people are behind all of the contributions, or if there's a nonprofit that contributed to that, and then if that nonprofit is then financed by other dirty money in that sense. And so because I'm not able to do that, I don't want to take that compromise as well. And so I think it really comes down to like, we really need to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, and that also comes to the funding of our elections. And so I think like what you're familiar with is democracy dollars, and
Hmm.
and really changing this mindset of you get to win an election because based on how much money you raise. And I think we need to really break that and eradicate that. And so one of the ways to do that is with democracy dollars, where each U.S. citizen is given $100 to go ahead and use that to contribute to a local, state, or federal official running for office. And so that's the way how we can continue to move forward and have everybody have an equal say. Because it doesn't make sense that just because my neighbor or not my neighbor, my other fellow city resident in Beverly Hills can donate $2,800 plus $5,600 through another PAC he's in to a candidate, while my other neighbor really has issues that need to be addressed, but has no money to support a candidate. Like, so she's just left to pick having people. So it's injustice in so many areas. And so I think right now, Rainier, it's really a time where we really need to do a lot of surgery in DC this upcoming session. And I feel like this is a great time because we have Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson, who aren't career politicians,
Hmm.
who are making bold moves and endorsing people in the down ballot races right now. And so I think that's very important and a very strong move. So I'm very optimistic, especially given that mail-in ballots are happening as well. I think this is an opportunity that a lot more people will be voting. A
Hmm.
lot more people will have the time to look up things online, and I don't know why people haven't been talking about it, but I think it's an actual big plus for down ballot progressive candidates that we do have mail-in ballots right now.
Definitely.
Um, and so I am definitely looking forward to it, and I'm very hopeful that we'll finish strong in this campaign.